You don't understand sometimes why things are working out the way they are until that moment happens that you're like, this is wild. This is why we slaved away at a restaurant, working open to close, double shifts, like learning the industry, doing all this, like putting up with all the crap to get to where we are. It's just like such a accomplishment, I guess, to like look back at the past.
Welcome to the Venue RX. On this show, we document and share best practices around owning, operating, and managing world-class wedding venues.
What is up, everyone? Jonathan here with the Venue RX. Super excited today to be sitting down with a venue owner couple, Kelsey and Tony, from Vezalay Mountain Venue out in Georgia, right? Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, excited to be here.
Yeah, well, I'm pumped. We were kind of laughing right before you got on. I love saying the name of where the venue is, Dahlonega, right? Like such a cool word to say, but also just such a beautiful area out in Georgia there.
It is. You're not the only person that has a difficult time figuring out the word, but also it's a fantastic area, and we have a lot of tourism here, and honestly, just the nature, the views, everything about the area is fantastic.
Very cool. Well, I can't wait to get into the story of how you started it and kind of some of the hurdles maybe you had, maybe some of the failures that led to the success that you're currently going through. But could you give me just a little bit of a word picture for anyone who's listening on the podcast, what the venue's like? If we were to walk there and be on property right now, what is it like?
Yeah. So we are about 10 minutes from downtown Dahlonega. About an hour-ish north of Atlanta, for anyone that doesn't know where Dahlonega is. But we have a 3,000 square foot event center. That's our reception space. And then we have a bridal cottage on site. That's another separate building. And then we also have a outdoor ceremony space and a chapel. So we have the ability to have indoor and outdoor ceremonies. But I think the best part and the main part about our venue is the views of the North Georgia mountains, the Blue Ridge Mountains. So our whole reception space is like lined with windows and doors, and you can see the mountains, and pictures do not do its justice with the view. We hear that from everyone that comes here, that the views are so beautiful.
Well, and the pictures that are on the site, we'll have links to everything, of course, in the description, but the pictures that are on the site are pretty stunning. So, I can only imagine being there in person. Sometime when I'm out in that area, I'll have to come by and check it out in person. So walk me through, and I think before we get into actually the venue side, how did the two of you meet, get into the venue industry? Let's kind of take it back quite a bit and do a little bit of an origin story, kind of building up to Vezalay.
Yeah, so basically, both of us grew up in the hospitality industry, working for restaurants. Both of us our entire lives, and we're still in it in this sense. And actually, I think I hired her at the restaurant that I worked at for over a decade, and she worked at for a good amount of time. But that's really where it all kind of started, is in the restaurant industry where we worked. And that's where I kind of developed a bit of my passion. And I've always wanted to own a restaurant, which is where I thought I was going to go with it all. But that is basically where we started with it all, is in the restaurant industry. And then as things transpired, we ended up here.
Yeah, so the restaurant that we worked at was also a bar. So we bartended and served, and we managed, like you said. And we would start, guests that came into the bar would ask us to bartend their weddings just from having like repeat customers. So we bartended a few weddings in the beginning just because that's what we did. And then we both have a big like entrepreneurial passion. So we started a bartending business back in 2018. So that's called Everlasting Events. And we started doing wedding bartending all over Chicago. That's where we're originally from. And then we moved down here October of 2019 and started continuing the Everlasting Events business, doing wedding bartending all over different venues.
Which was perfect timing because, end of 19, we know what the beginning of 2020 was like for the event industry. So when we had moved our entire family down here and said, you know what, and I was in real estate as well up there and down here, but, I said, I'm going to take a pause on that. And I really want to pursue this event business thing. So we ended up buying a vintage horse trailer and converting it in the beginning of 2020. And that's just in time for the whole COVID madness to start. And so we ended up having to take a pause while we waited for the world to figure out what was going on. But that's kind of how we started in the event world, at least.
Yeah, with the wedding bartending. And then I have a background in corporate event planning. That's kind of where I started in terms of the whole event business. So I worked for a medical company up in Illinois and did all their sales meetings and did a lot of planning on that end. So when we moved down here and we did the wedding bartending, I was like, you know what, I can do wedding planning as well. It's fairly similar in terms of like what you need to do. It's just different. It's a different atmosphere. So we started adding on wedding planning with Everlasting Events. So we would do the bartending and the planning. And then again, all over at different venues until we found this one.
And then also in that, just to add to that, I also developed another passion to be creative and build different custom event rentals. So from champagne walls to, like I said, the custom vintage horse trailer that I did that has 8 taps in it where we serve draft beer or cocktails on tap, and it's got LED lights and greenery and a backsplash, and it's painted with yacht paint and it's very well done. And so from that we would build different things to also rent out for different events and so on and so forth. So with Everlasting Events, what it kind of summed up and ended up to be was bar services, coordination, and then rentals and enhancements, as we call them.
Now I'm curious, how did the venue come to be? Like, what was the catalyst that took you guys from doing everything else? It really sounds like planning, bartending, all of that. What took you into actually opening the venue?
So the real dynamic in that aspect was the fact that when we would work at other venues, whether we were doing bar services or coordination or just doing different rentals, we would kind of notice that a wedding or an event is only as good as its weakest link, essentially. So let's just say that the bar services was on par. We did fantastic signature cocktails. The flowers looked fantastic. Everything was great, but the coordinator kind of sucked. You know what I mean? And so like the timeline was off, and that was, maybe the bride knew or didn't know, but like we would know, like this whole event would have been better if the coordinator was better. Or maybe the venue, dropped the ball on something. And so like everything else was great, but the venue. So we kind of realized that to make an event as good as possible, you kind of have to have the control on the whole aspect. And so that's kind of what we aim for, is having the best possible events that we could put together. And so we knew that we needed to kind of, have our hands on everything. And from that aspect, you kind of have to be involved with the venue.
Yeah. And I think we knew too, like Tony had mentioned, he had always wanted to own his own restaurant. That was like the thing when we were in the restaurant industry. That's what he wanted to do. And we've got 3 little kids. So I think we realized early on too that owning a restaurant 7 days a week, working, open to close, wasn't going to be realistic. So I think when we got into the wedding industry, the wedding venue was kind of like the next step. And since we always knew that we wanted to own our own thing and something that, could just be a weekend thing, which is not actually just a weekend thing. But so I think in a way, we always knew that was the next step, but how we actually found our venue, I'll let you.
Yeah. And so the way we found our venue, so like I said, it's always been a goal to own a venue, but our finances told us it was not a real goal, right? And so I'd never let that stop me. But what ended up happening is we were trying to parlay our event business into kind of a management type situation that I know you're familiar with. And we were in negotiations or in discussions with a venue that we did a lot of bar services at. And while discussing the potential of taking over a space, not purchasing it, but taking it over, they were slightly older, but really wanted to have more time to themselves and do that type of thing and travel more and so on and so forth. And so we were discussing with them the potential of us managing it because they knew that we did a good job and we were passionate about the industry. We happened to, so we were into the numbers portion of it all, of like how much who gets and what makes sense, what's a fair deal for both of us. And during that, I wasn't 100% sure either. So I reached out to a good friend of ours, Susan at Chapman Hill, shout out, but who is another venue that we do a lot of business at. And I said, hey, how many events are you doing a year right now? What were you doing when you first started, took over? And I really needed to gauge what we could and couldn't do to see what we could pay for.
Yeah, we had nothing to compare it to. So we knew those venue owners really well and knew that they would, give us a little bit of insight and be comfortable sharing that with us. So we talked to them kind of about how they felt our deal would have been, to just get some advice.
And at the same time, as life would have it, they were in St. Simon's, another state, South Carolina. No, that's Georgia. Is it? Oh, used to it. But they were at a bar and struck up a conversation with a complete stranger, and over a glass of wine, basically, oh, what do you do for a living? And the stranger said, oh, I own a wedding venue. And she said, no way, I own a wedding venue. And they're like, no way. Where at? Mine's in Dahlonega. Mine's in Jefferson, which is I don't know, 45 an hour from here. And no way. And so they connected from that, and ended up exchanging numbers and what have you. Then our conversation with Susan happened. Fast forward a couple weeks after that, Susan met up with this stranger from the bar again. And when they were both back out in that area, and that stranger said, I'm kind of thinking about maybe selling the venue, maybe looking for a management company, something so on and so forth. I don't know what I want to do, but this person was not passionate about the industry, introvert, didn't love doing the tours. It was investor standpoint, right? You not those type of people. And at that moment, Susan said, I know just the couple that's right for you. And so it was, you could call it fate. Some people call it God. Some people call it karma. Some people call it persistence. Whatever you may call it is what happened. And from that moment, she instantly texted us, would you be interested in meeting someone that might be interested in selling the venue? And completely set it up. We toured the place, met the guy. It was literally a perfect situation where he cared very much about this place. He came to this property when there was nothing here but trees and saw the view and said, I should build a venue here. Had no experience in doing so. He was a banker by trade, but an investor kind of mindset, and did a fantastic job building good amenities buildings here. And but fast forward, it wasn't for him. And so that was kind of our because he was looking for someone to that was passionate about the industry to service it and really propel it forward.
Got it. This is so cool. I love this story because, like you said, whether you call it God, luck, whatever, I think one of the things that I'm picking up here, and something that I've heard as a common theme of success, is that you guys were in the industry already. right? So you parlayed your skills of bartending, serving, all of the hospitality stuff into a different industry, right? But you had those same skills. You parlayed them into the venue industry by way of bartending in the venue industry, right? And then you realized you knew enough about that. And so you've continued to kind of level up in this. And now you're the owners of a venue. And you did that through connections, right? You reached out to help. Like, you didn't just not tell anyone that you were trying to do this. You reached out to your friend, they reached out. So you kind of put yourself in a position to be lucky, which I love.
Hey there, thanks so much for watching or listening. I wanted to take a moment and share about Common Sense Events. Common Sense Events is my company that professionally manages and operates venues all across the United States, and we're looking to work with a couple more venues this year. If you own a venue in Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, North Carolina, we are looking to work with you. Our company comes in and takes care of the marketing, the sales, the operations. We hire all of the employees, we manage all the employees, and primarily our agreements are based off of revenue share models. So it's a very affordable way to have your venue professionally managed. And this is especially good if you're thinking about retiring, selling your venue, but maybe you don't want to sell the land, or you're looking for another management option than you currently have in place. If you're interested in this, please reach out by email at venues@cseventservices.com, or you can also click the link in the description of this video or podcast. We'd love to hear from you and look forward to seeing if there's a way for us to serve you.
We have the same, and I mean, it's happened with the venue and it happened with a lot of things in our life, that life is funny sometimes, because it's truly, you don't understand sometimes why things are working out the way they are, until that moment happens that you're like, this is wild. This is why we slaved away at a restaurant, working open to close, double shifts, learning the industry, doing all this, putting up with all the crap, to get to where we are, is just such a accomplishment, I guess, to look back at the past.
Yeah. And, another thing to add to that is I have a weird relationship with luck. I like to say that I don't believe in it, although some things are lucky in life, right? But it's one of those things where it's not necessarily lucky. It was we kind of willed it into existence, right? We persevered, we worked towards it, and kind of, even when it was tough, even when COVID and this and that and family dynamics, we still pursued it and kind of not necessarily knew it would happen, but kept moving forward. And so kind of plays into persistence. And if you believe it can come true, it will. And so a lot of those dynamics come into talking about it out loud, as you kind of mentioned, having conversations with other people. And then that is really what literally brought it to us. It is those things.
Yeah.
And even going to events, right? With Justin and other people, it is really important. Then when you start putting yourself around like-minded people, and then we're doing the podcast together, and then someone's going to hear the podcast, there's an acceleration, but it's not just you didn't just stand in your venue and say, hey, one day we should go on a podcast. You were like, hey, when we sent the link through, you're like, yeah, let's sign up for this. And you booked a spot, right? So it's that inertia that you're creating. So I love that. That's really cool.
Role, and you're connecting the dots. You just don't know what the picture is yet until it gets there.
Yeah, it's a beautiful way of saying it. 100%. Okay, so share a little bit about, let's kind of dive into the venue itself, kind of nuts and bolts of the venue. You shared a little bit about how it looks and aesthetically beautiful views and things like that. When you got in, since you had already had a little bit of experience in the industry, what are some of the first things that you did? Did you create packages? Did you modify packages? What was existing that you needed to take over and maybe rework? Give me some of the operational side of it. Yeah.
So the difficult part about coming into a venue that is already running is coming into a venue that does something different than what you want to do with it. So, and that's good and bad. So when we came in, the previous owner already had a whole almost year's worth of events on the books, which was great for us.
I want to say there was something close to 70-ish events on the books.
There was a lot
for a little bit over a year. We believe it was underpriced, but it was marketed very DIY. It was very DIY, You come.
He didn't charge a lot for the space. It was just, you come use the space. Like, I'll unlock the doors, I'll lock the doors kind of thing. So it was very different from how we knew that we wanted to run a venue, because again, we're very hands-on, want to offer all the services. So that was difficult coming in and having to tell the clients too that we already had that there's new owners. I feel like that was kind of a
instant red flag, whether you want it or not. No matter how you present it, I mean, we did it very professionally, in my opinion. No matter what, a bride who gets some sort of communication that says there has been a change of ownership is going to freak out.
Yeah. Worry. So we tried our best to say like that, this is who we are. This is our story. Nothing is changing. We're still going to operate the same. Everything, contracts, all that stuff was obviously in place. But in a sense, we're going to offer you all this other stuff too that you technically wouldn't have got. So like, you get more value for what you paid for. So anyway, that's when we came in, that is how the venue was structured. And in a way it was good because we had almost a whole year to like work all these events kind of from the back end. Like, we would just have to be here. So it gave us an opportunity, even though I think we knew from bartending at other venues kind of what we liked, what we didn't like, what we knew worked. It gave us an opportunity to really think about how we wanted to operate this next year of business. So we now offer more services. Honestly, our bartending is done in-house by our Everlasting Events, and our coordinating is done in-house. But we now have, packages, all-inclusive packages. So we do things a little bit differently now.
I have two questions kind of about that transition period. If you could go back and do the transition period again, or for anyone listening right now who might be in a similar position where they're walking into an environment where there are currently booked events, would you do anything different, or what would you advise people to do to be able to kind of smooth that process?
I have my 2 cents. I don't know about anything different because I don't think we did anything too wrong. We definitely learned. I don't want to say we thought we knew everything going into it, but we were very experienced. We kind of knew what would happen. We knew there'd be red flags. We knew kind of everything that was going to happen. And there was still learning. There were still things that slightly surprised us.
We also talked, Susan, that venue owner couple that helped us with this place. They went through a similar transition when they bought their venue. So also asked for pointers on that. She mentioned how she, called everyone. Like, we wanted to make sure those clients knew about the change of ownership before there was any sort of announcement or anything, before it got out to the public. So that is one thing I will say that I think we did well, was making sure our current clients felt like they were at ease with it before, like, they just saw like, oh my God, change in ownership. Because I've seen a lot of scary stories where there is a change of ownership and there's just no more winning.
And then the bridal cottage happens to disappear out of nowhere, right? Because they have a different plan, and so there's a lot of horror stories we've heard, and so we were pretty aware. But like Kelsey said, I think we did a really good job touching base with people, letting them know what's going to happen, and then the way, from a business standpoint, I think what we did well was, like I said, the venue is actually going to get better, right? So we're enhancing the property, we're installing hundreds of more plants. We're making the view better. We're redoing the grass. We're adding more different tables, chairs, and different, decor. And so, like, to the client, it's like, oh,
they were happy. They were happy once. And I met with a lot of them. Like, being a coordinator, I talked through a lot of them, and I don't know how many of them said like, oh my God, we're so glad that you guys took over. Not that there was anything wrong with what it was before, but it was DIY. It wasn't anything before. So again, coming into it, I think they were happy, and I don't think I would change anything.
Totally. And it sounds like the lesson there is give them that blanket of reassurance through communication, because it would be really easy to just kind of take over and then be like, oh, hey, we're new here, we're just jumping in. And even if you say nothing's going to change, they're talking with their bridesmaids or their parents or whoever. And so it sounds like, Kelsey, by you just getting in and talking to them, calling that meeting with some of them, it gave them the reassurance that like, wow, like, this is actually going to be a better experience than we even thought it was going to be when we first booked.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. And then as you came in and, maybe you want to do packages now, and, you want to have bartending and you want to have some of those things, were those things that you just started requiring for new bookings, or was that something that you tried to kind of upsell to the existing clients?
Yeah, so we definitely wanted, part of our business plan, right? When we first came in, our goal was to generate as much income as possible, right? And so from the get-go, we wanted to come in and say, hey, here is this great bar service that we also are now in-house offering. Here's our great coordinating services. And from my perspective, I honestly thought we would book a lot more than what we did end up booking. I don't quite know why that ended up being, but maybe it's because it's from a sales approach, right? The new owner is trying to push this thing. The truth is the new service was better and we offered it pretty cheap. So it is what it is. But yeah.
I think a lot of the events too, like already had, like you book your vendors so far out too, that like when we came in probably the first 6 months, we couldn't really offer that many things to the clients because they had already had them. But to answer your question, I think it was a little bit of both. Like obviously all of our new clients, we wrote a whole new contract and everything that said like, you need to have this, and we required this. But then we did also send a mass email out to all the previously booked clients and said like, here's our rental list and here's our price for our bar services. Like, and we did get some. We did get some, and I think we still have like 2 or 3 clients, like old clients left on the books that are using our services. So it was a little bit of both, and that got a little bit messy for me on the back end, I feel like, because I'm like, okay, which client is this? And, what did I promise them for this price kind of thing? So that I think was a little bit hard to navigate, but I think we handled it well.
Very cool. Very cool. I want to ask in just a little bit, I'm just going to kind of give you a little heads up because I'm curious, just the dynamic with the two of you working together. Originally, you hired her, then it's your guys are coming on a partnership. You're married, correct? You said you have kids.
Yeah. Fell in love, had the babies, then got married. Yes.
There you go. So I want to come back to that and just kind of ask, like, how do you juggle that? Because I think a lot of people at different points might struggle working with their spouse. And so I love hearing, like, how do you guys make it work? And I work with my spouse. It's not always pretty. It's not always the perfect scenario. I think there are more upsides than there are downsides, but I'm curious to hear from you guys. Before we get into that though, what sorts of softwares, tools, things are you using on the back end to help support, like CRM systems? Are you using like virtual phone systems? Like how are you set up to run the venue?
So first, before Kelsey dives into this, I want to say our dynamic is one thing we do very well is we have passions and skills in different areas of the business. Strengths, yes. I'm more tours, people person, and on the property, landscaper, property manager, real estate, those type of things. Kelsey is a fantastic website designing, back end
planner,
and coordinating CRM, all of everything that's really important to the operation of the business.
I don't think Tony can tell you what CRM actually stood for, so we'll just say that. But to answer your question, so we used Honeybook. That is what we use for everlasting events. That is luckily what the previous owner was using for the venue. So coming into it, we were very familiar with Honeybook.
We also took over, I believe, his system.
Yeah,
so that was nice that we could take over that, because otherwise it would have been.
Yeah, we didn't have to like transfer any contracts or redo anything. So we were using Honeybook for the longest time, and I love it. It's great and it's fairly cheap, and I never had any issues with it. But we just recently switched over to Dubsado because we're starting to offer more, and I just think we were ready for like the next step of adding something that was a little bit more robust. So again, nothing wrong with Honeybook. Love Honeybook. We use that. I use Aisle Planner for planning and coordinating. I connect my bride.
Pardon the interruption. I wanted to take a moment and share with you about WEVA. WEVA stands for Wedding and Event Venue Association, and it is a professional association custom built for venue owners and operators. We felt like there was a lack of resources, community, education, and networking available specifically for our industry. And so we recently started this association, and it's been growing by the day. We would love to extend an invite to you, so please click the link in the description or wherever you're watching this video, and we would love to welcome you into the community.
You still split the bar. So is Everlasting Events still using Honeybook and kind of like a separate entity, or are you really making the effort to merge them together?
That's a loaded question in itself.
There's legal reasons why we purposely separate the bar, not necessarily legal insurance liability, right?
Yeah.
Purposes that we are separating that company from the venue itself. As far as business operation programming,
I think in Honeybook it was two separate things because again we took over the previous owner's Honeybook account, but we still had ours. So all of our Everlasting Events clients, because again when we took on this venue, we were still doing venue or weddings at other venues for bartending. So there would be weekends where we'd have 4 or 5 events in one weekend because we were here and all over the place.
Yeah, pause. So with our other company, Everlasting Events, we would do up to 2 events per day because we have a tight handle on control and quality, right? So Kelsey would be at one, and maybe we hired more staff for that one, and then I would be at one where I could oversee it and have that. That was with Everlasting Events, and we booked a year out, let's just say, and then we took over 70 events with this. So there was obviously a lot of carryover. So there were a lot of days where we'd have three weddings per day plus multiple days and weekends. So like there would be some weekends we would do 6, 7 events. And it was, I mean, you're talking about working.
So we had 2 separate things for Honeybook. We then tried to merge it to one, and I'm going to my long-term goal, to answer your question, is to merge them all to one, just to make it simple for me. Again, with the hard part of like whose contracts are where and what. I'm just kind of finishing out events over on Honeybook before everyone gets over in Dubsado. So
totally makes sense. Dubsado, I've heard and I've experienced, it is, like you said, much more robust, and it adds features that sometimes you don't really care about as much in the beginning, just because you're getting a rhythm.
And I think so. I did a lot of research on the CRM systems when we were with Everlasting Events before I got Honeybook, and I looked into Dubsado at the time, and I thought, this is way too complicated. It seems like a lot to learn, and I hear that from people. So I went with Honeybook. It's very user friendly, very simple. Again, did everything that we needed it to do. And I don't think that, like, if I would have gotten Dubsado in the beginning, I would have failed and I would have given up on it. But the fact that I've been with Honeybook for now, 5 years with Everlasting Events, and now going to Dubsado and learning it, I feel like it was a much easier transition because I knew, the process and like what a proposal is like and all the steps that I needed. So I'm very happy with Dubsado.
Also, I think it'd be good for you to talk about. Kelsey did a lot of research from Honeybook. We kind of she looked a lot into what would benefit us best next, right? And so I asked every venue, every caterer, what do they use? What do you use? And so we got a lot of different answers. And what were some of them that you looked into that she took a lot of calls and the tutorials and really paid for a couple of them to try them.
There's a lot out there. And honestly, every venue is different. So there's some that work well for others. We looked into Triple Seat for a while because we had some other venue owners that used it and loved it. But it was really heavy focus on like catering and catering companies and venues that have catering in-house. So once I started getting into it, I was like, it's great, but I think there's something better. It just didn't check all the boxes for us. So I know that question gets asked a lot with venue owners, like, what's the best CRM system? And I don't think there's like a one-stop shop, like one size fits all for everybody kind of thing. I think it's really just what matters to you and what's going to take the work off of you the most.
One of the things that I really want to do, and we're probably going to end up putting this inside of WEVA, the venue association that we started, but it's a feature, because we've actually done a number of demos, just like Tony said, Kelsey did. And it's really enlightening because you kind of start realizing, triple seat is great if you have a hotel and you have multiple rooms and, it's incredible. And you can't do that with so many different other things. So it's very purpose built. And so it'd kind of be neat to have an index of like, what type of venue do you have? Oh, go down the list. That describes me. Let's go call those guys.
Yeah. Because the other thing with triple seat too, I was like, okay, I can overlook the whole multiple location thing. I don't need that. But the starting point of our events is like the tour and booking the tour and availability calendar. And it didn't have any of that. So when I started and I got into it and I, paid for it and everything started playing around, I was like stuck at the first part of the process. And it was going to be like, I didn't want to have to we're using something different for the floor plan.
That's what I was about to say. Is that was from my outside perspective, when I was overhearing from Kelsey telling me her trials and tribulations it's like, this would work, but then we still need something for the credit card processing, and we still need something for the layout and for the table design. And then we still need something for the planning. Yeah. And then for like our email, it doesn't really work in our I don't know, accounting, our bookkeeping, it doesn't transfer. And so it's like, especially for, man, for your type of what you just mentioned, like putting the certain dynamics together or the pain points, aimed towards the wedding industry for a real good program.
Yeah.
That'd be cool to see.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Tell me, in terms of your team, like, do you have a team? How are you splitting the roles right now? You said, I can tell, very personable. You're out there doing tours, and that's great. And then, Kelsey, sounds like you're a little more ops focused on the back end. Do you have other people that support those roles at the venue?
Yeah. And so, we really, especially in the beginning, we really were like, okay, we know we can't do everything. We know it's not beneficial to do so, but
we're going to try.
But full transparency, like financing wise, we don't have a huge cash flow still. We're a year in, and we're still being very frugal. And so honestly, Kelsey and I really,
this is the team. You're looking at the team right here.
Although we do not only, I don't want to say portray that we have a team, we do have other people. We have some people that help us with marketing more locally and marketing strategy. Someone that helped, we hired kind of early on to help us bartend, and she's a fantastic mind and does a great job. And so we, even though we can't pay her $1 million, we definitely utilize her because we also want to bring other people up with us, grow with them. And then we also realized early on weakness of ours was, we know how valuable social media is. And both of us are so detail oriented that like to when we put together a short video and film it and then caption, it's like a whole day before we post it. And it's just not feasible. And then other things. So like we hired someone to help us make social media posts, which I think has been very valuable. And, other friends and vendors, helping us with some videography of, of the venue. And we definitely have a small team. And this year though, we're kind of growing it further because we're offering so much more to where we're going to be doing not only the bartending, but like we're going to need wait staff, and we're going to need a bus boy, and we're going to need people taking out trash, and these other things. So this year is really where the team and a lot of moving parts and staffing really is going to be more developed.
Yeah, I think I feel like this is common that people say, but like we had to learn how to do everything and do it all ourselves before we can pay someone to do it, but then also know what to pay and know what needs to be done, how to do it, and how to do it well. So We have to clean the bathrooms, and we have to clean the floors and put out tables and chairs and all that stuff to know like what it takes. So now that we've been in it for a year, like Tony said, I think we're ready to expand.
I will say one of the things we did is pretty much, I'm going to say, cut 100% of the costs, the expenses when we took over. And obviously not the utilities, the lights, the gas, those things. But like in the cleaning company, the landscaping, the people that he had lock and unlock the doors or day of coordinate. And those, we like cut everything on top of, here's the big one. And I'd love to get into this. I'd almost like to get your perspective on this, but, the previous owner was paying a lot of the Knot, Wedding Wire, those type of companies. And then we're talking 20, 30 grand, 40 grand a year, like big buck. I mean, thousands of dollars a month. And we, in the beginning, we were like, we kind of talked to other people. Should we do this? Should we not? And we just canceled it. Right.
Yeah.
And, I'm kind of curious on your point of this, whether it's worth it or not. I don't love that way of marketing, but I also, as a businessman, see the value of it because, no one's educated on getting married unless they've gotten married, right? And so people's first stop is typically the Knot, Wedding Wire. So internally in my brain, I'm like, am I doing us an injustice by not being on there? Because I know people are going there naturally, but I also don't love that way of business and marketing, and we're more word of mouth and social media. And so we canceled all that and cut the expenses, kind of moving that. What is your thought on those type of marketing websites?
I'm curious, and I'm just looking at this right now, just out of my own curiosity. Yeah, you guys are still showing up on the Knot or Wedding Wire.
Correct. But
yeah, so I think when we first started, again, the transition was a little tricky in terms of the previous owner and us and like the tech side of it. Like his website was on a different platform, and he tried to give like logins and passwords to things. And that got a little messy in terms of the Knot and all that stuff. I think I tried to change what I could on certain things. But we definitely don't pay for things like that anymore. Like the Wedding Wire and the Knot. We might still be on it, but we don't pay for it.
Well, I guess my point on that is I'll just give my perspective on Wedding Wire and the Knot. And I don't know if I've actually ever said this publicly, but I really think that the platforms have a place 100%. And now managing venues in multiple states and tracking very granularly the data that's coming through and how people are seeing us and things like that, I know 100% that those platforms, Knot, Wedding Wire, Here Comes the Guide, Eventective, Party Slate, Zola, all of those ones, they do drive leads.
Yeah.
The quality of those leads can be debatable at times. And then, how many you're getting, but depending on how much you're paying. So that's the other thing you kind of need to weigh. Exactly. And if that works, like we have venues that the Knot Wedding Wire drives a lot of business. And we have some that we looked at and we're just like, it may be driving one. We're not sure. We cancel it. Nothing happens. And so that's to your point, I think.
Again, in the beginning, we didn't have that money to pursue it. So we said, we're going to stop everything. We're going to do it our way and see how that works, which is, not stand for anything.
But also really putting that money into social media and content and those things that we, as, I don't want to say a younger couple, but like we believe that will work.
Yeah.
Let me give my perception of those type of companies. Initially I'm like, I don't know if it's worth it. And then later I kind of developed the feeling that kind of like what you just mentioned is the leads that are coming from those are tire kickers. And being in real estate, I know there's a big difference of quality of leads, as you mentioned. Like, you know, there's leads that are likely to buy, and there's leads that are just like, how much does this cost? Doing the research, I should say. And what made me uncomfortable with those companies is that I took the call with them because they were, after a while, they were like, hey, we see you're not with us anymore. We'd love to whatever. And so eventually of them hounding us and me curious if it would be beneficial, I took a call. And so the call made me even more uncomfortable because I started asking specific questions, right? Like they mentioned some type of statistic like, you know, I don't know, 40% of the leads that we generate for you will book with you. And so I said, how do you have that information? You know, how do you know that? Because obviously we're not kicking back information, telling them when that tour came from them and then they book, right? And so they kind of paused or beat around the question, and I kind of asked it again, and then they're like, well, that's generated from a nationwide statistic. And I go, okay, so it's not actually us, that's a nationwide statistic. And I kind of wanted to further, who did that nationwide statistic? Oh, our third party surveyor did it. So I kind of reiterated, I said, so the company that you hired to do your statistic said that, you know, nationwide is this, and that's what you're basing our numbers off of. You know what I mean? And then as soon as I kind of phrased it like that, they were all about getting off the call. You know, and they weren't about the sale to them was not worth it. They kind of moved on to the next person. And that's just not my way of business personally. You know, when someone asks a question to get off the call. And so again, it kind of just made me very uncomfortable, but even still to this day, I'm like, even though I don't want to say I have a vendetta against them, even though it's not, I don't love them, am I still doing our business injustice? Because I'm still a businessman at heart. I don't want to, you know, I would want to be over the emotion of that all. So
I think being on there is good, but I also know from a consumer that, you know, anyone who's on the first page or anyone that says like ad or sponsored, like when I search on Google and I see the first 5 that say sponsored, I skip right past them because I'm like, I know they paid for them. Like that to me, like paying for your name up there just gives like me a bad feeling.
For us though, but does the client do that? The other thing is too, like when I go on the Knot, I think it's the Knot, there's a category called mountain venues. Mm-hmm. And we are the most mountainy venue that exists, especially in our area, let alone elsewhere. And when I clicked on mountain venue, I remember one time we were like 4, 5, 6 pages deep. And like the other people that were on the first page, there was no mountain. There was no mountain.
That's something that you pay for. You can pay for a mountain thing. You can pay for outdoor. You can pay there's things.
And we understand that that's whatever you want to call it. But does the consumer, I guess, is the question.
Yeah. Well, marketing is definitely a fascinating topic, and especially in our industry. And, you know, you kind of made a reference to the real estate industry before, and another, not to bring up Weeva again, but that's another thing. Like I talk to real estate investors who want to do venues because of the management side of what we do. And they're like, we just want to build it. And then if you guys will come in and run it, but they're coming from a industry with data and statistics, and, you know, you kind of know market comps and things like that. And so, you know, if it's a smart idea to put a 200 unit, you know, apartment building, because you know capacity, you know, that the area and historically how fast doors have rented in that area. And like, that's data that exists. We just don't have that. So hopefully we can make some progress there. I want to go ahead.
Sorry. One last thing on that note. I'm so all for Weeva and all that, because coming from the real estate industry, you know, we have the NAR, for realtors, and they do you pay for it, but they do a fantastic job, you know, I'm going to say representing realtors and making sure the education's there, and then also fighting for the correct legislature and laws. And I mean, I mean, I have a lot I could say about the wedding industry and the laws and alcohol and liquor stuff, but there's a huge definite need for all that stuff. So we can't wait to see it and be a part of it or what have you. So we're really looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we'll chat about it a little bit after the call, but I wanted to just wrap today. So I know you said that you both have your areas of expertise, but it's so easy to take, work home, because work is home. Home is work. Like you're there, right? And with kids and everything, there's a lot. I've got 6 kids. My wife works in the business with me. Like, I know that it can be really, really challenging. Are there some things that you have done or experimented with that kind of keep the relationship and kind of family life going good and then business life going good? Like, is there a separation at all? Does it just kind of work because the two of you work well together?
First for me.
I don't know.
I'll go
first.
So let me first say that, like, it is not easy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, either is marriage in general, but marriage plus business partners is even more difficult. And if I were to boil it down to one thing, it's the fact that we're both so passionate about our business, and we also have different viewpoints. And so, who can be more right? Who can be, who is right? And so we honestly struggled with that a good bit in the beginning. Of like, I'm not gonna say I'm stuck in my way, but I had my viewpoint. And I'm like, we should do this. Like, this is the right call. And she's like, well, no, we should do this because of this. And so
who makes the decision? Like, who's that design back?
So in the beginning, I almost went like, if we do have a disagreement, I'm right. And then eventually, also we've had like our other employee who is a very sound mind. We're like, okay, couples counseling, you need to make a decision. If we're
Classic.
But what I really think has benefited us a lot, especially very recently, is like the separation of tasks or idea of responsibility
in decision making. Like, he's not going to make a decision on
the coordinating, the decor, the color scheme, whatever. But outside, if I'm like, hey, I'm going to put a pond over here, like, that's not her decision either, because that's.
Yeah. I'll still give my opinion on it, though. But in terms of like the family and the at home thing, we've got 3 kids, 10, 6, and 4. And they love coming up here at the venue, and they help us with the tables and chairs sometimes. And we're trying to, teach them. Yeah,
she's using help very loosely.
Yeah.
But they're learning. They're seeing my favorite part of it is they're seeing our work ethic, and they're seeing how we're doing things. And I know we're instilling some of that into them, which is my favorite part, even though they're not like, they only got 20 minutes of help in them until they're, bored and want to do something different or what have you.
Yeah.
But, it is really nice to have a family aspect of that, of us all working up here, because there's so many times where we're all, her and I have to be up here. And so it makes most.
We have a lot of help, but it is hard sometimes when, you very often, they're in school all week, and then the weekends we have weddings, and we have to say, mom and dad have another wedding. We got to go to the venue again. So that's, difficult.
Tour, clean up.
But we do make a point to do things outside of work and, plan vacations and do other things and say that, we work hard to do things like this.
We explain it pretty well. Like, the reason we're able to take you to Disney World this year is because you guys let us work so hard at the venue the last October, November, when you didn't see us very often, right?
Yeah. I think that's really good. It kind of creates a different normal. And I think for us, we've had a lot of conversations about reframing what normal is, because I think I grew up, just using an easy one that I think everyone may be able to relate to. At least for my generation, my situation, it was kind of like, you go to school, the better, school you go to and the better degree you have, almost guarantees the better job that you're going to get. And so that was like the path for me. And then I was going to go work. My dad was an engineer, so I wanted to go, I was going to be an engineer, be something similar. But it was like, I liked math, but not like that math. And I liked science kind of, and not really. And I wasn't a great student. And it just got to be the point that like, that was not going to be my path. And then also it was kind of right at that point in time where a college education didn't carry the same weight as maybe it did 20, 30 years ago. And so my normal went from, oh, I'm going to do this to like entrepreneurship. And so for my kids, just reframing normal as being like, hey, we're just going to play all day. Mom and dad are going to be around all the time, to like, hey, it is a grind to get a business started, let alone a venue business. You're working, and you guys know the hospitality grind, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you're resting Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday,
Nothing.
Yeah. So that's cool. It's really encouraging to hear that.
One thing to add to that is, again, I 100% agree with what you said with that framework. It used to be, our generation was brainwashed into, they showed you the graphs, right? If you have a high school degree, you make this much. If you have a college degree, you make this much. If you have 6 years, this much. But, that's not necessarily what we taught our kids, whether it was directly or purposely or not. But like, our kids definitely soak up what we do, because our oldest, Ashton, he lemonade stands. He uses our mobile bar, sets it up in the neighborhood. And like the first year he made like $150 and like was all about it. And like the next year he sold all about it. And it was like, Dad, go away. Don't be here. You cannot be here. So like, I can't help him at all. Like I can't even be there. Like, so he's completely manning his own lemonade stand. And he was, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 the first time. And, but just to see that, like, he's definitely understanding the entrepreneurial spirit and like how it works, and making it look pretty to make the most money, and where he puts the signs by the road and like all those things. So when I see that, I'm like, man, it's almost like
you did something right.
Did something right. Like school's very important with kids, but like, man, like they're getting a real education of seeing us.
And doing it doing it. I think it's all about experiencing it, and just kind of trying everything to see what you like. And
that's one of the best parts of the venue ownership, in my opinion, is like bringing in our family and getting them involved in like seeing how they play off of it. And I can't wait to see how it plays out, 20 years from now in their own lives. What they do with it or not. Choose. Yeah. It's just cool that they get to get that education
in a different way.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Well, guys, thanks so much for coming on. Kelsey, Tony, this has been really fun to chat about your venue and how you got started, and so many really cool things that I think folks can learn about, just as maybe they're thinking about starting a process similarly. If people want to connect with you, maybe ask questions about a specific part that we didn't cover, or maybe they're like, man, I need a friend, and I want to start, starting something, and,
love friends. And we love sharing information and knowledge and anything.
Yeah. So we're an open book with that too, because that is literally how and why we are successful, because we piggyback and ask for advice from other venue owners. So we're kind of an open book on that.
What's the best way for contact?
Yeah. Email info@vezalay.com or on our website.
Social media.
Contact. Yeah. I'm everywhere.
Yeah, info@Vezalay, Vezalay, Vezalay.
Vezalay.
Yeah.
ALAY. Beautiful. info@Vezalay.com. Excellent. And then on socials. Awesome.
Yes.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for coming on today. This was great.
Thank you for having us.
Hey there, pardon the interruption. I wanted to share with you about WEVA. WEVA stands for Wedding and Event Venue Association, and it's a brand new association just for venue owners and operators that we launched last year. It's been growing quickly since then, and we would love to offer an invitation to you to be a part of it. WEVA is an association that is purpose-built for venue owners and operators to provide community, education, and networking opportunities just for our industry. We have a number of different resources, including networking, co-working events, local meetups, and all sorts of different things. We will be having a large yearly event as well. We would love to have you part of the community, so please consider joining. We do have a link in the description below, or we will be linking it wherever you're listening to this. So please click on the link, check it out, and we would love to see you inside of WEVA.